Dit is Bergkamp! Dit is Bergkamp!
Persie, ja! Ja! Ja!
Daar is hij! Ja! Ja!
Daar is Klaassen, goal!
Hello, it's podcast 70 from Football-Oranje, your home of Dutch football. You're listening to us via our range of platforms, whether that's YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, or Football Nation Radio. I'm Michael Statham, and I'm with Mike Bell to discuss RZ against Ajax in the title race, to PSV in Feyenoord also have an outside shout, plus also the Netherlands games coming up in March. We just talk about the selection issues that Ronald Koeman has. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure to press like, leave us a review on iTunes, and subscribe if you're new, if you're listening to us on YouTube or SoundCloud. Enjoy the podcast. Mike, good to talk to you about all things Dutch football. I think with the Netherlands friendlies coming up very soon, we'll be talking about that later in the podcast. But the first thing is with the Dutch Eredivisie, Ajax and RZ are neck and neck at the moment in the title race. And who would have expected that, say, well, I mean, at any point. I think right now, though, this title race is the tightest it's ever been since September, since August. And it all seems to be sort of crumbling down around Ajax. And even though they got a good result against Heerenveen at the weekend, RZ are breathing down their necks. And Feyenoord and PSV are suddenly coming into the frame as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting end to the season. We've got, Ajax looking like they're going to, steam to the title, but now having a really big wobble. And it's great that AZ Alkmaar are still in the running for it, and there's no reason why they can't go all the way this season. Feyenoord under Dick Advocaat still unbeaten, and PSV resurgent. So yeah, we've got four teams that could make a late run for it, and it's very exciting.
It's good to see that Feyenoord and PSV are making it even more interesting now. Plus, it also means that you're getting some of these Dutch internationals in form as well. Good to see Denzel Dumfries getting the winner for PSV at the weekend against Groningen. For RZ, though, they've been so exceptional throughout this season, but then they hit a small blip. Are we seeing them come out the other side now? And are we seeing Turncoat Miners, Calvin Stengs, Moran Boadu really staking their claim for a Netherlands place? Are they ready?
Yeah, I really hope that Koeman keeps an eye on them, and Owen Wijndal as well, because Koeman Miners has been excellent all season, and it's a travesty that he hasn't really got a call up already, especially since Kevin Strootman's still getting called into the midfield. I'd much rather see Koeman Miners. I think that them being knocked out of the Europa League and the KNVB Cup, it's not a good thing for Dutch football, but for them, with their tight squad, and Arne Slot doesn't like to rotate too much, I think it's going to be best for them that the players get as much rest as possible towards the end of the season, and that'll keep them fresh even for the Euros. I really want to see Stengs get caught, because I think he can be a bit of a wild card along with Boadu, especially if Memphis and Malen don't recover in time. He definitely becomes an option for up front. So yeah, the fresher they can be towards the Euros, even better.
I look forward to talking to you again about the Netherlands striker issue a bit later. But the one for me is Calvin Stengs. He's really off form with RZ, and for me still hasn't had the impact that he was having at the start of the season. And I don't know if it's the fact that he's maybe a little bit more lazy now, maybe that he's hit the heights that he has, maybe he's getting a little bit complacent, or whether the fact that defences have started to figure out his game and therefore aren't giving him as much time on the ball. Either way, I know that you've still continued to be impressed with Calvin Stengs, and I admit he's a great player still. I really enjoy watching him play, but he's just lost this edge that made us all want him to be starting games for the Netherlands. And for me, I wouldn't want him starting now.
I disagree. I think that Stengs is, he's a very different type of player to, say, Idrissi or Boadu. His game can't just be calculated on the fact that he gets assists and goals. I think if you actually watch his all-round play and where he actually picks up the ball, it's quite deep. And some of the passes he plays around the pitch are phenomenal. And I think he's been a bit unlucky in recent weeks because his teammates just aren't finishing off the chances that he's creating for them. I think I've seen that Boadu and Idrissi at times can be a bit wasteful in front of goal, and Stengs is setting up players like Classy to take shots from outside the box. None of them are going target. I think that Stengs, he does need to work on his finishing a bit. He takes quite a few shots and they don't result in goals, but yeah, I've got no worries about his form. I think that he remains a top class potential player. And yeah, I think you need to look at his game, and he's almost like a quarterback at times. He picks up the ball around the halfway line and spreads passes about, and that side of his game is very exciting to me. And I would pick him every day over, somebody like Steven Berg, who's just getting a lot of attention right now for Feyenoord, but because he's scoring so many goals, but most of them are penalties. So if you're looking at somebody that's got just that touch of something different, I think Stengs is still the man for me.
And for me too, at one point in the past, I totally get your point about his all-round game and how he's a creator for RZ and not necessarily someone who's always on the end of the attacks that they create. But yeah, for me, I know people will disagree with me, but I think he's lost a bit of his creative edge. Similar to how Hakim Ziyech has lost that bit of edge recently too. Very similar ways, how they've always been so dependable with their great left foots. Haven't seen it quite so much recently. And for me, I probably would go with Steven Berghuis ahead, purely because he's on form. And if you're going to the Euros, you want players that are on form and are sparkling. But whereas, yeah, I get that Stengs is definitely the future option for the Netherlands. I think it's probably now a good time to start talking about all these questions that we had in via Twitter relating to the Netherlands squad. And I think we should start with Ryan Babel, because we're talking about attacking midfielders, wingers, and wow, I mean, hasn't it been a disaster for Babel at Ajax since he moved in January? Abdul sent in a question asking that Babel shouldn't be selected by Koeman at all. What do we think? And I'm not sure Koeman's got much choice at the moment, has he, Mike, because of injuries?
Yeah, I mean, if it was up for me, Babel would be nowhere near the squad this time around. I think we can all say that we've been surprised by his contributions to the Netherlands squad and what he's done over the past couple of years since Koeman's came in. He's been excellent at times for the Netherlands, but yeah, since he's joined Ajax, he's been an absolute disaster, and he's not played in the last few games. They're saying it's because he's not match fit, but he's been a major disappointment, and Ajax can't be happy with what they've seen from him going forward. Yeah, he just doesn't look anywhere near from what we see when he puts on the Netherlands shirt. But I just can't see Koeman not selecting him. I think that the loyalty that he has towards the players that have got the team to the Euros is not going to change, and I think that Babel will be selected. And whether that's right or wrong, it's Koeman's decision, and I think he's going to stick with the players that have got Netherlands there so far.
It's interesting how much faith that Koeman's going to give to these players that have got the country this far. But there's so many dilemmas as well at the moment. And this is like the last chance that Koeman has got to really change things in the team on a selection basis. So Ryan Babel's definitely one of those players who's going to be in contention for gaining or losing his place. Such is the importance of this particular time of year before the competition. And there are many players who are being touted as getting into the squad and really having an impact. And another one of those players is Tim Krul. Someone called Mike sent in a question asking about Tim Krul. Are we still going to ignore him, even though we might have penalties when it comes to the Euros?
Yeah, I think there's a big dilemma right now over the goalkeeper situation, and you can't ignore what Tim Krul can bring to you, especially if Netherlands do get taken to a penalty shootout in the Euros, because he's such an excellent penalty stopper. When you compare him to Tim Krul to Jasper Cillessen, we saw it at the World Cup when Van Gaal did it, and it worked wonders. You've seen recently that he's saved penalties for Norwich City. It can have a big impact. I think for me, Cillessen's going into this squad out of form, and he's only just won his place back in the Valencia 11. For me, that Koeman should really be considering giving Tim Krul a chance, or even Marco Bizot. I think he's the informed Dutch goalkeeper around at the moment. He's kept 17 clean sheets this season already in the Eredivisie, and I just want to see him get a chance to show what he can do in the Netherlands squad. And yeah, even if Cillessen form doesn't improve, Justin Bijlo for Feyenoord has been excellent since he's come in. So Koeman has 4 really good keepers to choose from.
He's also got a lot of centre-backs to choose from. And one of the options for centre-back is Stefan de Vrij. William asked a question about him. And should he consider using De Vrij ahead of De Ligt to start alongside Van Dijk? De Vrij has been one of, if not the best centre-backs in Italy this season, William says. And yes, Matthijs de Ligt is the future, isn't he, Mike? But can he hold down that place because he's so prone to injuries? Who would you play at centre-back? Would you continue with De Ligt and Van Dijk, or is De Vrij a very good option to now start the matches?
Again, it's Koeman's loyalty. He likes what De Vrij, he likes what Van Dijk and De Ligt. He likes that partnership and he likes what they bring to the team. I don't see him changing it this close to Euros unless something drastic happens and De Ligt doesn't play between now and the end of the season. But I think if you're going to pick one player, of the whole Dutch squad who's just been the unluckiest player so far, is Stefan de Vrij, because he is playing absolutely brilliantly for Inter Milan right now, but he's third choice right now, and he's not going to get in ahead of De Ligt and Van Dijk. For me, I think that partnership has been solid so far. Koeman likes it, and I can see that being the two that he goes with at the European Championships.
You know what, Mike? So do I. I think that he's going to stay loyal to those centre-backs because of all the positions you want to have as a partnership, it's got to be the centre-backs. And that is so important when your full-backs aren't quite as strong. De Ligt and Van Dijk, I think, are going to be the two that are chosen, but De Vrij is not a bad replacement should there ever be an injury or a suspension, say. Another of those positions then is left-back and right-back. So Daley Blind's been the left-back for a long time, but his form has been shaky for Ajax ever since he had to come back from his unfortunate issue with his heart. And at right-back, I don't know if Denzel Dumfries has really been in proper form at all this season. He's come up with some important goals for PSV, but if you look at him defensively, I don't think he's been quite as convincing as recent seasons. Do you change that now? Is it too late, or can you bring in someone such as, I don't know, say Robin Gosens, who plays in Italy as well? Who do you choose?
Yeah, I think that again it's loyalty, and we know in an ideal world you'd say that the Netherlands coach would pick players on form, but we know that Koeman doesn't do that. He seems to pick the ones that he likes the most and the ones that have got Netherlands this far, so he's going to stick with Daley Blind. I think that Gosens, again, we've all been calling for him to get a call up. He is also, being closely followed by Germany, so getting in ahead of them and tying Gosens down would be excellent. He's been in such good form for Atlanta this season that you'd like to see him get a call up. I would say the same for Wijndal, Izzet Akmar. That's two left back options that Koeman has that would probably, for me right now, get in ahead of Patrick Van Aanholt, who offers a lot going forward for Crystal Palace, but again, he's a bit shaky at the back, and you wouldn't want, say, a Van Aanholt on the left and a Dumfries on the right, because that would just leave the centre back pairing just a bit too open for me. But I think that Dumfries, he's come up with some very important goals for PSV recently, and he's the captain of the side, and I think his form is improving towards the end of the season, so I think that he will get a chance to show himself, because Koeman has so little options on that side. Hateboer of Atalanta is another one, but whenever we've seen him in a Netherlands shirt, he hasn't really convinced. Karsdorp's coming into some form at Feyenoord, but it might be a bit too soon to say that he could be a Euro starter, because he's not really convinced that much. And yeah, Joel Veltman would be the other one, but I don't really want to see him playing at right back when he's played in the centre defence for Ajax most of this season.
Well, those positions, and particularly the striker position, are going to really hot up in the next few weeks when we find out more how Koeman's going to set up his teams for these friendlies that are coming up. And I know that we're going to discuss this in the next podcast, Mike, particularly about the striker issue. But just an update to those that are listening, Memphis Depay is still trying to get some sort of Disney fairy tale style comeback from injury, and Mike was actually telling me about how there might be a documentary made about his injury comeback, as amazing as it could be if he makes it in time for the Euros. But in the meantime, Daniel Marlin's still out injured, and it's looking like Wout Weghorst and Mine Boadu might be in the picture. But I guess we'll see who's selected for the squad, and then we'll discuss who maybe will be starting for the Netherlands in the next podcast. Now, one of the other pieces of news for Netherlands football fans this week was the Nations League draw. And we had a couple of questions in about our opinions on the teams that the Netherlands have been drawn against. And they're in a group with Italy, Bosnia and Poland. Mike, what are your thoughts on the chances in that kind of group? Would you make the Netherlands a favourite? And what good does it do for the Netherlands to be in a group with these three teams?
I think that's a stark contrast from how I felt when the last Nations League draw was made and Dutch football was in a bit of a rut, and then you get Germany and France and everything was downbeat, and we were thinking, oh, we're going to get 4 losses and go out of the tournament and be relegated, and then Netherlands end up surprising everyone top of the group and get to the final. I think that this is a much easier group, as Ronald Koeman said himself. I don't really know much about Bosnia, but I don't think they're as good as they were maybe a couple of years ago. They've got Edin Dzeko up front still. He's always a threat. And yeah, Poland have some great talents. They have probably one of the best strikers in the world up front in Lewandowski. So they'll cause some issues. And then you've got Italy, who are always strong. It's always good to play against them for this Netherlands side, because they're such a big test. And I know they've got quite a lot of good young players coming through at the moment. So yeah, I think it's an easier group, but one that'll have plenty of tests for this Netherlands side, and I just hope that once again Netherlands go through as group winners, because I think they definitely have a chance of that.
Italy are going to be the best opposition there, I think, and it's great that we get to see these matches rather than meaningless friendlies. I think it's good that we again have these competitive group in the Nations League. The France and Germany matches though were pretty special, and I think the Nations League's given teams something to look forward to in these international breaks. And yeah, I think I'd say the chances are pretty good of again trying to top that group, because the Netherlands know how good it was when they got that far. So I rate the chances pretty high of them again wanting to win that competition. Now we've got some spring cleaning to do with questions that we've had in this week, and we had a question about the Beneliga. A question from Mike Richards, potential of the Benelux. We haven't discussed this actually in recent podcasts, but it keeps popping up in the Dutch media about the Belgian and the Dutch leagues combining forces in an attempt to become to break into the top 5 European leagues. We've mentioned it in the past, Mike, haven't we? The past year, past 2 years, past 3 years in our podcasts, and all the time we've been doing them, about what would happen if they did join together. And I'm definitely in the camp, I don't know about you, Mike, but I'm definitely in the camp of don't change it, because it's the matches between the Dutch teams that have all the history and are made special. You don't want to see a Belgian mid-table team play a Dutch mid-table team, because there's nothing special about that.
Yeah, I totally agree that it's an idea that's getting put around at the moment, and worryingly it seems like quite a lot of clubs, even Ajax, are in favour of it at the moment. And yeah, for me, I don't want to see Dutch league lose its identity and these games stop just because Ajax, PSV and Feyenoord would rather play against Club Brugge and Anderlecht and these sort of clubs. I think that in some ways it has good ideas for maybe increasing the money involved in the game. I know that there's news this week that the Belgian league had overtaken Eredivisie as the 9th most expensive league with TV rights. But I'd much rather see Dutch clubs playing against each other because that's what I love, and I don't really see Belgium get mashed in together. The league isn't that broke at the moment. We've seen Ajax reach the semi-finals of the Champions League last year. AZ, PSV, they'll be competitive in Europe hopefully next season as well, as long as Feyenoord. So yeah, I don't see Belgian clubs really going far in Europe at the moment to say why it would have any benefit. So yeah, for me, stick as it is. It's not an idea I want to see happen anytime soon.
I'm just wondering why Dutch and Belgian clubs want to be in the top 5 leagues so much. Why that's so important to them? Why not stay with your identity and stay with the sort of level that your country is at? Because you can always be a consistent top 10 league in Europe by maintaining and doing better at what you're doing already. Why try and reinvent the wheel and eliminate hundreds of years of history just to try and become a better league. It doesn't guarantee success at all. So yeah, I'm not a fan of it, and I know that many people in the Netherlands aren't either, but it's not like it's going to solve anything for sure.
No, and if anything, an idea that could come out of it, which would make sense to me and would be a better option, would maybe be a joint cup competition, have both leagues in that, and have a trophy at the end of it. Yeah, you'd get some of the games between Ajax and Club Brugge, Ajax and Anderlecht that you want to see, but you don't lose the league identities. Doing it different ways, have a cup competition. That's the best way I see it happening.
That's the first I've ever heard of that, Mike. If that's your idea, that's genuinely a great idea. Like, I'm all for that. A cup competition could be the way forward as well. Yeah, that's a great idea. Now, a couple of questions left to go on our podcast, and we mentioned at the start of the podcast how RZ and Ajax are neck and neck for the title. But could Final be in with a shout of a top 2 place? Mike, what are your thoughts on this? Because with Berghuis in form, Final was scoring goals and just winning games.
Yeah, as I said earlier, Feyenoord under Dick Advocaat still unbeaten, and they are one of the form sides in the Eredivisie at the moment. I don't know if it'll mean that they'll end up finishing in the top 2. I hope that AZ's form doesn't drop off that dramatically and that they stay competitive until the end of the season. But yeah, Feyenoord have definitely put themselves within a great chance of even catching up, and even people are still putting them forward as potential title winners. And that just shows that the excellent job that Dick Advocaat has done since he's taken over, and that's why they're trying to offer him a new deal. At the moment, he seems to have installed total confidence back in Rotterdam, and yeah, to me, Bozanic, the new striker up front, looks a really good signing for them as well. I think he's going to be a top player in the next couple of years for them. So it's exciting times again at Feyenoord, especially after the start of the season where it was all doom and gloom under Jaap Stam, and they thought that they'd be lucky to finish even mid-table in the European playoffs, and now they're again getting mentioned as potential title winners. It's been a crazy season for them, but yeah, I can't see them finishing top 2. But yeah, I think they should definitely hold their heads high if they finish third and win the cup, because that would still be a great season after the start they've made.
On one hand, Feyenoord have still got Ajax and RZ to play, and if they beat both of them, then that really puts them in the mix for the title. And if they win all their remaining games, I'm sure they'll become champions of the Netherlands. However, I still think that Ajax and RZ are going to win plenty of games to keep sort of Feyenoord out of the equation, and I still think Feyenoord have been a bit suspect defensively, and they haven't always been utterly convincing in winning all their games. They've been quite scrappy actually to win games, and that is the mark of a true champion. Yes, I get that point, but at the same time, I think that it can't go on forever that they keep scrapping wins, and I think that they will eventually come unstuck in a couple of games. And they should have beaten PSV the other week as well, but they only got a draw from that. So I guess, had they got those 2 points, they would have been only 4 points behind in the title race. So yes, they're a contender, but for me, an absolute outside shout, because I think with the remaining games we've got, then I think Ajax and RZ will win enough to keep Feyenoord at bay. And one of the other interesting points of this weekend was Ajax's win at Heerenveen to sort of put them back on track in the title race. But the argument between Dusan Tadic and Serginho Dest. So we had a question about that, and whether that says something about the atmosphere at Ajax at the moment. And for me, Mike, I think that Tadic led by example in that match, scored a couple of goals. It was proper captain's performance, and it's probably the best he's played in a while. He was actually quite lethal down that right-hand side, trying to link up with Dest all the time. And even though Ajax had conceded far too many chances down the other end, due to the way they play, it's always taken that risk, and Heerenveen have got a lot of pace. But I thought that Tadic played really well, and he had to have a go at Dest. And I don't think it was something that could be done in the dressing room. I think that's okay. And in the state that club's in, at that point, with the results going the wrong way, for me, Tadic did the right thing and did it on the pitch.
Yeah, I think that one of the things you can say has been missing from Ajax this season is leadership in the defence. And if Tadic saw something that he didn't like from Dest, if he left his position or did something wrong, then yeah, you should call him out on it. Looked very passionate from Ajax captain, and that's what you want when your club's not in the position that it is and it's not performing well. That you want somebody to lead by example, and that's exactly what Tadic did there. And yeah, I want to see more of that from Ajax players. It shows a bit of fight, shows that he wants to win, and yeah, he led by example. He got the 2 goals that put him on course to a big victory, because if they had dropped points on that, and in the first half, Herenveen created a lot of chances and should have scored at least once, possibly twice. So yeah, need more of that from the big players at Ajax. You'd like to see Daley Blind maybe get a bit more vocal as well, because he should be a leader at the back. And yeah, I think Erik ten Hag will be secretly quite pleased that his captain is showing that sort of fierceness on the pitch and making sure that the Ajax defence doesn't lose their concentration, which they've been guilty of several times this season.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of pressure's put on their back four, but it's up to them to try and deal with the threats that the Eredivisie can throw at them. If you were going to put a percentage of a chance right now, Mike, on RZ winning the title, what % chance do you think you'd give them?
Oh, it's a tough question. If you were a betting man, maybe I'd probably say about 35%, because I think that if I had to choose which team was more likely to drop points towards the end of the campaign, would it be Ajax or AZ? I still think that it'd be AZ. They can still go away to some clubs and drop a clanger of a performance. We've seen that a couple of times this season. Ajax, I've let them right back into it with a couple of sloppy results of their own, but I still make Ajax the favourites. And I'd love it if AZ Alkmaar won the title this season. It would be great for the club, for Dutch football, and the talents that are coming through there. It would show that you can upset it big time, especially since they have the 5th highest budget in the Eredivisie. It shows that going with their own youth instead of buying players from abroad is worked wonders, and I hope other clubs take that example, but I can still see Ajax winning it.
In the 9 games that AZ have got left, they don't really play many of the lower teams. There's a lot of games against the European hopefuls and the top teams. It's fixtures against Feyenoord, PSV Utrecht, Vitesse, Groningen, that are all in there. And yeah, you're right. They could easily drop a clang of performance, just like against Twente the other week. That was awful. But then they've gone turn it around and played excellently when they went away to Ajax. So yeah, let's see what happens between AZ and Ajax, and whether who blinks first, so to speak. Mike, thank you very much for joining me on this podcast. I know there's going to be much more soon from us with the March Netherlands fixtures coming up, but also the Eredivisie title race, and Euro 2020 is coming thick and fast. So yeah, I'm sure there's plenty more to come from us in the future. Even though there probably hasn't been too much in the past few months, it's been quite sporadic, I think, with podcasts. And I think just a shout out for the biggest Football-Oranje Netherlands fans out there. We've got our own wristbands at the moment, and you can buy them. If you look on our website, if you look on our Twitter page, you'll see that there's a link there for how to buy them. They're not cheap, but at the same time, if you look at the reasons why we have decided to sell these, then I'm sure you'll understand why we're selling the wristbands. And hey, if you want one and you think you can support us, then go for it. Yeah, thanks, Mike, and thanks everyone for listening. And there's plenty more to come soon.
That is Bergkamp! That is Bergkamp!
Persie, ja! Ja! Ja!
Daar is hij! Ja! Ja!
Daar is Klaassen, goal!